as advice to some aspiring directors would be to first approach filmmaking as a way to tell a story, what you want to tell through your film. I mean, if you have clarity about that, then everything else falls in place. So the reason to make a film should not be that you want to make a film. It should be more that you want to tell a story, and you have chosen the film as a medium to do that. And if you try to make a film only with the purpose of making a film, you'll be mostly lost in trying to figure out why you're making the film, and all the troubles that come in making the film will just look a lot bigger, and you will not be able to solve them. So at least for me, what's happened is right from the beginning, even my theater days to films, I've seen that it's only when I had clarity on why I'm trying to tell the story is when I could figure out how to go about making the film, how to get the funding, how to work through the issues of low budget filmmaking, and everything finds an answer if you have this particular thing answered in your head as to why you're making it. So how do you equip yourself to be a director? So first thing is, like I said, you need the clarity on why you want to make the film. Two, it's again, you have to approach it as an art, and it has its own other tools that you need to know. It's not just about holding a camera and then shooting. So filmmaking has its own grammar as to why certain films stay in your head and why certain films don't stay in your head. If you've seen some classics, why is it that after many years, sometimes decades, you still remember them, whereas a very commercial blockbuster film, you come out of the theater and you don't even remember anything of that film. There's a huge difference why this happens, because film is a very strong medium. It has both audio and video, and kind of works on your both your very strong sensory systems, visual and your ears. And so I think the memory kind of works, emotions work. So that's why films are so powerful. And how do you use this tool then to keep it, use all the powerful tools that filmmaking gives you? The best way is to today you have cell phones and everything. So if you have something to tell, then you can always go onto your cell phone, shoot something, and then your own family is your audience. If you just show it to them or the friends, and you see how they respond to it, just observe how do they get bored, is that video holding them? I'm just saying, shooting something, even shooting a picture. So then you've figured out why what is this visual trying to communicate to your friends and family, and you take the responses. So that's how you start learning as to what is it that you have in your head and what is it that you could do with a visual medium, and then what you have in your head, is it being communicated through this? And once you get a hold of these things, then there's a lot to read and a lot to watch, because I didn't go to any film school. The best way for me to learn was that I would watch all the great classic films, and then I would watch it again with the director's commentary on it, and then start reading about it. So most of these good films come with a director's commentary, and they tell you how they thought of some shot, something which could be extremely big when you're watching the film. You'll figure that the director most of the time would have by chance done that, and something which is very simple is what they would have taken maximum time. And that's a good learning, because as you progress, you will understand what is it that in your story you have to spend a lot of time and energy and thought to do, and you also need to know when to allow something to happen. A lot of times, like when you especially do theater is a great way to understand that, because you have audience right in front of you reacting to what you're doing, and that gives a great insight on whether what you're doing is working or not. And for me, that helped. So there's visual grammar that needs to be learned, there's emotional drama as to how to unfold a story, how to keep the audience in sync with the story being narrated. They shouldn't guess the end, or they shouldn't feel that they already know what's happening. So all these are techniques which need to be used, and they should not look like a technique when the film is being viewed. So when you can achieve that part, I think you've learned how to narrate a story using sound and visuals, and after that you can start getting into more complex stuff. So some of the mistakes that I see a lot of short filmmakers, they into they would have seen big Hollywood films, and the first thing they want to do is an Inception, or they want to do non-linear narrative, they want to try graphics. I think all these are tools. What is important is that you try to first tell what you have in your head as simple as possible, because that is actually more challenging, and then you think of all the other glossy tools like non-linear or VFX, or trying to play with other tools like just music, and these are all extra things that probably masters of filmmaking have tried much later. But if you look at even Nolan's first film, Following, and it had a lot of non-linearity, but it's somewhere he didn't lose what story he wanted to say. So I think that's a great way to learn. If you can see all the directors you admire, and then you go back and see their first films, and then you see how they started and where they've come. Filmmaking art is unlike any other art because it's extremely expensive. So if you're a painter or a musician, you could always just sit and do your work and record it maybe. But in filmmaking, you're getting a lot of other departments. Like every department is an art in itself, and you've got to bring them all together, and they have to take your vision forward. And so it's very expensive. So as soon as economics come into picture, then again art and economics have to be balanced. So there is a lot of complications that way, and you will, as soon as you get into bigger budgets, these things become more and more complex. So if you're a short filmmaker who's just shooting with a DSLR or your cell phone, you're actually having it very easy at this point, and you have great distribution network like YouTube, Vimeo, everything available today. So I suggest that in your early days, don't even think about what sells. Don't think about winning an audience. Just do your work the way you want to do it, and see where it's going. For all you know, sometimes without taking the help of all the commercial tools, you may still get your own audience somewhere, because today the entire world is right there. You can reach them. You don't need a distributor. So try and experiment on those, and you may just get your audience without having to follow the old school rules of songs or all the comedy tracks and all that stuff. So that shouldn't even be something that you should be aspiring for. So if your voice within is saying that that's what you want to do, then there's a great industry waiting for you to give you jobs, and that's much easier if you're very clear that's what you want to do. But if you're trying to find something else, but you think that you're forced to do that, it's not really true anymore. So every industry this today has its own parallel industry which has come out. So there are big commercial blockbusters which are done, and which is good because it keeps all the industry technicians, everyone employed. And so because maybe your film doesn't have such a huge commercial value when it starts off, these technicians can come and work in your film for free or for much lesser pay, but that means that they need to go and keep doing those commercial films. So I am of the opinion now that both industries need to exist, because one gives you bread and butter, the other gives you some time to do what you're passionate about. And especially only as a director you will be in one part of the industry, because you as a director are having a vision about a film, so you probably won't be able to do this juggling between commercial and passionate films. So you will probably be stuck to one side, but the rest of the technicians which are collaborating with other directors, they have the freedom to do that. So sometimes they do take it, and it's good. So if I have a musician or a DOP, if they are waiting for my film for the next 6 months, they go and do 2-3 projects which helps them to get some money. So that also helps me, that I can go and call them and say that, hey, I have a experimental film I have to do, and they do it in their free time. So I don't really look at in that way anymore, where commercial industry is bad or anything. It's important. But where you find yourself is you take a story and tell yourself that this is the kind of approach that I'm going to take for this film, and be clear that you're going to do it, and that if you go commercial way, then maybe your script will suffer, because again, the guy who's putting in the money needs to have his logistics taken care. And if you're taking in it an experimental, then you are the one thinking how best and how creative. Maybe it will not get 10 lakh audience, it may just have 1 lakh audience, but you have to figure out how best you can get those 1 lakh audience to take it to the next 9 lakh audience. So there's everything that you've got to do when you're looking at passionately making a film the way you want it. In a commercial setup, a lot of these things are taken care, but maybe the story you want to say is not exactly what it will become eventually. How do you balance out the economics with the art? Now, you can say that I do this film for myself, I don't really care whether people watch it or not, but then say that only if you're putting the money in. If somebody else is putting their money into your film, then it is your moral responsibility to find a way to at least make your film in such a way, or promote it, or take it to places and it would be your responsibility to make sure that the guy who trusted you with his funding at least gets back his investment. So I do this, that's my first rule, that the films that I do should not incur any losses, for one, who's fueling it, and two, it should not be a challenge to the audience. I would like to speak to them in a language that they understand, but I would still not give away what I want to say. So it's a slow transformation. It's better to be on a mid path than being on extremes. I think that's what I've been able to do with my films, wherein I've not gone extremely commercial, not extremely arty. Somewhere they find this bridge, so maybe I will not get 100 crores in a week, but I don't want that much. At least I'll get an audience who's waiting to come and watch it in a theater, than not having anybody and just sending it to festivals. So my films are neither festival films or neither 100 crore films. They're in between, and at least I have found peace in the way the film gets made, and how much business it's able to make. So if you define your agenda that way, where you want to stay which stream, then I think it becomes easy for you to think of films and how to go about it. But at least in my case, I would not want to challenge my audience with the entire film, but I might challenge them with a couple of scenes or a couple of sequences. So they will like 70 to 75% of the film will be friendly, wherein they can go along with the film, but a small percentage might make them think, may make them go back and discuss about it. So by the time they come back to the next film, they will already be aware of what tools I'm trying to use. And so take your audience along with you. Don't challenge them or try to appear like you're the smartest guy and they need to understand. Audience generally don't like that. So budgeting is a key thing in the film getting made and just staying as a script. So many films don't become films and stay as scripts because not that they didn't have the money, it's just that they didn't know how to use that money. So it's how I at least work on it is I don't write a script and say that this requires X amount of money. I'd rather write out a script and then see how much money I have or how much funding I'm getting, and then I start working backwards. So if someone tells me I'm giving you 1 crore or 50 lakhs, like in case of Lucia. So Lucia, when it was written, was definitely a 3-4 crore film, but as soon as we got 50 lakhs, we said, okay, now let's figure how to do this in 50 lakhs, and then we go back to the script and make necessary changes which didn't require that kind of a budget but still were as impactful. So that's the best way to go about, because that way you're not stuck between this funding thing that can go on for years. I've seen friends who have been waiting for years trying to get the right funding. And in films, as a director writer, as you're aging, your perspective about the film changes, the story doesn't become relevant anymore. So it's important that you tell the story when you want to tell it. So that can only happen if you can look at it after you've done writing, disconnect and start looking at it from a very analytical perspective, where you just say, this is how much I have and I will spend 10% on this one, and the other few sequences, though they appear like they need so much funding, just sit down as an audience and question yourself that does it really need all that kind of expensive making. Then probably the audience in you will say that two people talking in a room is as good as two people. The content is important. So you'll have these conversations and you will figure out how to bring down the budgets. So it's best to make it in a most effective budget as smartly as you can, because any money that you save up in making the film will help you take it and take it forward to a larger audience. So you may end up using up all the money you have to make the film, and then you'll have no money to distribute it. So it's important that you keep that aside, that distribution budget, so that, if you make the film and if you don't have money to show it to anyone, then there's no point. So you need to think of where all it can go. If you're making it for festivals, then you need to keep that money aside for applying for a festival and everything, because I've seen examples of people who have made their film, they don't have money to edit. So how do you then, then I've seen them going around talking to funding agencies. So it's a long process. Instead, you could have worked backwards, kept this money aside. So once you've understood the process of filmmaking, of pre-production, shooting and post-production and distribution, then allocate budgets accordingly so that you don't get stuck at any point. It doesn't matter whether the process is small or big. Your film could have a smaller pre-production, smaller shooting budget, but make sure that you have the entire circle going. Instead of spending, if you have 1 crore, make sure you have 25 on each department, roughly. Instead of having 90 lakhs spent on shooting and then 10 lakhs is not enough to do a post-production, then the film is stuck. So if you have 1 crore, then figure how to shoot the film in 30 lakhs. And then and you have enough money to then do post-production. So at least your film is done and you're over with this film. It can go out, people can watch it. So I think that should be your target. So things have changed, and with internet, film distribution has become extremely easy. You don't have to be thinking of theatrical as your main window. Everything's changing. Mostly people are on cell phones, tablets and laptops. So you need to look at those screens as a viable way to distribute your film. So think of getting an audience to watch your film as your primary objective. Forget where they watch it. So if you have this as your objective, then you won't be disturbed with the facts that maybe a multiplex will not screen your film. When you make independent films, it's a very challenging thing to get your film out there on the big screen. Few years ago, that was the only option, but thankfully things have changed, and you don't have to put it up for free anymore. You can do VOD, video on demand, where people have to pay and watch your film. Just get your trailer going. You put your trailer, do a good edit on your trailer and put it up on YouTube for free. Let it go as viral as it can. Get people to watch it. Have proper contacts, like a website or something, where people after watching your trailer can come to a website, and maybe there you have a pay and view system set up. And all these are so simple now that all you have to do is spend half a day searching for the best service that you want to opt for, and then you can have this going. So Vimeo is great. You can have Vimeo pay-per-view, video on demand, and then you can create various offers, everything on Vimeo. It's like setting up a Facebook profile. It's as easy as that. And YouTube also has their own payment, but YouTube has a certain slabs. You need to have an X amount of subscribers before you get these, but Vimeo is extremely simple. And there are more, but I have been using Vimeo. And I think once you get active on these networks, then there could be bigger networks like Netflix or Amazon or HBO who might because everybody is looking for good content. So if your content is good, then they will find you. And sometimes if your trailer is good, then it makes its way to all these people who are looking for good content, and they might contact you. So it's important that you have your contact available on all your film promotional clipping or pictures, posters, anything that you have, so that anyone who finds it interesting should be able to reach out and ask for this content. And trust me, like sometimes for U-Turn and Lucia, I never thought these two films were festival friendly films, because Lucia had songs and everything. So but as soon as the trailer went viral, London Indian Film Festival team saw the trailer and they wrote to us saying, we want to watch your film. And I wrote to them saying that, yeah, I don't think my film is festival kind of films. They said, you never know. And they saw the film and it premiered in London. And same with U-Turn. I was not even applying for festivals, and New York Indian Film Festival saw the film, the trailer, and again. So have all your information out there. And today there are so many events happening related to films that your film may just fit into something that's happening somewhere in the world, and they'll find it. So today a director is not just the one who makes the film, it's become sort of a producer. You will be taking the entire film on your shoulder, in independent films especially. So it is your job to make the film, get the funding to make the film, and then once it's completed, because it's your baby, you will have to now take it forward. That is, give the film its end, which is have it seen by as many people. And things that, again, like distribution, marketing is also in your control. You don't anymore need these posters or hoardings or television commercials and radio commercials they are not the only sources anymore. Social media is a great free tool out there, which if used effectively can change how a film is received. And there are live examples. My own two films, Lucia and U-Turn, heavily were dependent on social media rather than traditional media for marketing, and it's worked very well. It's in fact it's more genuine marketing that way, because you as a director are telling your audience that this is what my film has and this is why you should be watching it. And today audience like an interaction like that. They like to connect to the one who's made the film, to understand why they should be buying the film to watch it, and then blatantly just putting out some randomly thought of marketing, or trying to give them false images of what the film could be. And I think if you're just honest with how you made the film and what it's trying to tell and why the audience should watch it, the audience today likes to buy something like that. And things like this go viral, people like to share. And so you can think on these terms as to how you can just present what you've made, and how to get people to share amongst themselves. And in the beginning it might look very small, but if your content is good, if your film is good, this goes very fast, much faster than you can imagine. So, and I think it's just that you've got to spend time on these things, and you have to like doing it. You should feel like getting the whole world to watch your film. You should have that strong desire that it's not just about making the film, you'd want everyone to watch it. And once you have that desire, then you will find a way to approach and find solutions. So at least with us, we have never thought that only filmmaking was our job. We felt that getting people to watch it is also our job. So, and that is how we've been able to have these successful film productions, which were not just good, effective way of making films, but in terms of distribution, or how we got the audience from online to come offline and get into theaters. So it's been quite a journey, but it all happened only because we wanted them to do that, and we did everything possible to convince them to come out and watch the film. So it is your job, and not a PR agency or a marketing agency's job. It is how you want to approach your audience. It's like you inviting them to a private event. That's how they feel if you do it right, and then they'll come to that event. So think marketing as a part of making the film. So finding the right fund and the team to make your film is your first task, and So once you, it means already filmmaking is not a one person job. It requires many people to be part of your dream, and only then it can happen. One person with the talent to write and maybe shoot, only these two things, but you then still need actors, you still need musicians, everything. So it's important that you network as much, meet people with the similar tastes in filmmaking or art, and then you discussed and make them collaborate with you. You should realize that there are infinite number of talents out there. So if an actor is trying to find interest in working with you, it means that he's mostly collaborating and not really thinking of being hired. So it's great if you can think of or approach talents in a way where you would want them to collaborate with you. So that's a great way to start, because then they also bring in a lot more into your project. Sometimes they enhance your film in a much better way than you could have done it on your own. So it's important to find that collaborative attitude in the way you take a project forward. In terms of funding, it's difficult, but you have to find, every film has its own way of finding its funding. You just have to get that right thing. Crowdfunding is not really the solution all the time. Like the word crowdfunding, it's all there in the crowd. So if the crowd is in sync with what you want to do, and if they find that your intentions of doing this film and what they would like the film to do is the same, probably it's only in such cases the crowdfunding campaign can go successful. It's not that if you want to do a film about the most burning issue in the country and the crowd you're approaching has no clue about it, or they don't even connect to it, then they may not fund it. So it's important who you reach out. So if you're making a film about say traffic, or then maybe you should talk to or approach the crowd which is going through the same issues in that city. Then maybe there's an interaction possible. If something is happening in a desert and you come and pitch the audience which is completely opposite, then they may not find it interesting too. So you need to figure out what segment of audience you want to cater. Maybe that's when crowdfunding is more successful. And so once you've cracked collaboration and finding a way to fund it, the most important thing is to value the funding that you've got. It's extremely important that it's not a gift. Treat it as a loan. Treat it like something that if you don't fulfill, they'll come and you have to owe your life to them. So once you think of it that way, I think the way you spend it will be in a much more responsible and smarter, effective way. So yeah, that's about how I think one should get on to making films and enjoy the process. Nobody is trying to tell you that in 5 years you need to win an Oscar. So just think that this is what I like to share with the audience, with the world today, and this is the best way to do it, and enjoy the process. And I think that's why you would eventually become a filmmaker. And once you actually learn the tools of filmmaking, and when you have learned to tell this, the first dream that you probably would have started with of winning an Oscar doesn't mean anything after a point. So that's my advice.